Hey everyone, tonight I wanted to welcome everyone to the rabbit hole tonight. I'm Cody Bakewell. I'm with Collin Klein and Corey Zimmerman. And tonight it's Dr. Anthony Fauci is the topic. He was America's top health guy, and the face of the fight of viruses, but he was the hero of the United States for a while. Or did he play games with Big Pharma? Yeah.
He still is to some groups. Yeah.
His first big test in 1981 was AIDS. According to some of the stuff that I've been reading, he was appointed to the NIAID in 1984, which is the Institute of Allergies and Infectious Diseases. His first big fight was HIV, the HIV flu, and then after that he went on to run that department for 38 years from 1984 to 2020. Let's see. He is the dark side, in my opinion, of AIDS. He rushed an NIAID treatment in 1987. The drug was responsible for too high of a heart and kidney disease and tanked immediately the immune system immediately. And the thing is it cost like $10,000 a year back in the 80s. I've been reading RFK's book. Says that Fauci hid cheaper options from the public, like bulk treatments of plasma or dona, whatever, a safer, cheaper COVID that could have saved millions because of the lack of expense. More red flags in 2003. He pursued H5N1, which is a deadly bird flu disease. Fauci funded the gain of function research, made the virus an airborne in a lab for vaccination purposes, but at super risk, one of them leaked out and caused a pandemic. The second thing that he was involved with was the Ebola 2014. He funded opportunal travel. Let me start over. He funded treatment in Zimbabwe that led to a pandemic. He got loosed out of one of the labs in Zimbabwe and led to a large amount of deaths. He also, his most notable thing is COVID-19, where he awarded the Wuhan lab $600 million for gain of function research, and which may have saved lives, but wrecked schools, jobs. Moderna, which was enriching, and Pfizer. So that's just some of the research I've done so far. I think, where do you guys want to start? Does that sound pretty good with you guys?
Well, here it is. The National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease. Yeah, it can be traced to other pandemics, other things that have come out. You've heard of Lyme disease, right? It comes from where?
Deer Island.
Lyme, supposedly. Connecticut. And it came out of the Rocky Mountain lab.
It was Rocky Mountain fever.
Well, the story was it was a bunch of, like, it's Deer Island, right? Like some deers migrated from an island and started biting people or something, right? Yeah, no, but it was
vicious deer
manufactured. Yeah. And where is it today? Where's all the Lyme disease?
It's still around.
It's all in the United States.
When I was in Missouri, there was a person that had Lyme disease, just got it a couple years before. Messed her up.
I've met people that have it. Like, it's it puts you out of commission for months if you survive, which some people don't, obviously, but
yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's still around. It's still in ticks.
Oh, ticks. That's right. Yeah, it was ticks.
And then mosquitoes carry what? What was the other diseases?
Malaria.
Yep.
Bird flu.
They
Yeah.
And
carry
Bill
all
Gates
kinds of
wants
stuff.
to vaccinate people with mosquitoes, right?
Yeah. He's already doing that.
What was impressive when I was doing just some basic research, because I've been reading the book on it that, what's his name, Bobby Kennedy put out. And
What's the name of the book?
Let's see. The Real Anthony Fauci.
Yeah, is it the one that Colin's holding up by perchance? Is it
Yeah,
that one? Yeah.
The Real Anthony
Yeah.
Fauci.
So I'm trying to read a little bit.
The disturbing thing that I've come across is, if my research has led to anything, is basically the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and Fauci got together, and they funded each other, and they basically use Africa as their guinea pigs. And then they would run all these tests on these poor people, come up with these drugs, put them on the market, and then the people that they tested it all on couldn't afford the treatment. It's like,
I stayed in Uganda for about a month, and I was talking to them about this. Like, so how do you feel about all these UN or NGO people coming around and sticking people with stuff? And I was talking to a guy that's kind of a bit more, he had a good head on his shoulders, let's say. And he basically said that most of the villagers or people, they still look at Western medicine as just kind of like, the bee's knees, you take a pill and magically it fixes, just give it to me. I don't care what it is. Just put it in my body, and I trust in Western medicine. But over the last several years, more and more people, and I guess conscientious people, have been realizing, he's like, yeah, when the white coats come around, we start running, like a lot of us, because they're like, start sticking us with stuff, and people start getting sick and dying. So a lot of them have learned to avoid those folks. It's still very prevalent because that white coat, that authority, it's official. Like, I can't tell you how important that word official is to those folks over there. If it's official, it's official. You can try, take it to the bank. So, as it were, because that's what lack of education and context gives you. You have to trust external systems and hope that they're not trying to murder you.
Which comes down to Operation Whitecoat. Remember hearing about that?
I don't. Are you talking about the Rockefeller deal?
Because
that's where this all kind of came from.
Defense medical research program carried out by the United States Army at Fort Detrick, Maryland, 1954 to 1973. And the crazy thing is, I had a guy that was one of my church members. He was one of them.
You still know him?
He was a test subject.
Wow.
Yeah. The military eventually fessed up and paid 100% for everything that he had to go through. He's probably passed away by now. I was a pastor at that time, a youth pastor, and one of the guys had to do a research project and stuff, and he did it on this one guy that went through that, all of his experiences, and wrote up a paper on it. Yeah, that was some pretty horrible stuff.
So you have firsthand experience with this whole ninth circle of hell that we're about to talk about. So
yeah.
Awesome.
Yes.
It's impossible for people to wrap their heads around this unless it touches you, which the upside of going through a global ritual like this is it's now touched everybody.
Well, what I couldn't understand is I hadn't really looked into like past pandemics, but I kind of had, read about them. My great grandmother told me about the Spanish flu?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because she was born in 1914 and she was 4 or 5 years old when that happened. So I remember talking to her, but she died in 2010, and how they were, I forget the word right now, where they would they take the sick and
isolation.
They'd isolate the sick, and then all the other people would be free. And then if you got sick or you were going to go to work sick, you felt sick, you stay home. So I kind of had read about, the treatments for that and how they did that. And then when they came up and they started, I knew the word. Is it
quarantine?
Quarantine. Yeah, it was the first time in human history that they quarantined the healthy instead of quarantining the sick. And it didn't make any sense. Why would they put everyone together? And I think Anthony Fauci is part of the reason that so many more people died here than per capita in any other country. It's just mind blowing what he orchestrated, and he convinced everyone that he wasn't full of shit.
Look, it wasn't obviously just him. Our media apparatus is the most sophisticated psychological warfare device in human history that we know of. It's like Putin said it. He's like, they were talking about Russian disinformation, or some reporter was like, isn't this like you're accused of Russian disinformation? And he's like, go talk to your bosses about like, we can't hold a candle to them. Like, they control reality. Basically, we say things and it just gets lost in the ether and it doesn't hit anywhere. And that's what he said. It was very, it made me laugh when I heard him say that. I was like, oh God.
But it seems like there's like a 4 horsemen that were actually together for what, 30 some years,
something years, yeah,
38 years working together, and created pandemics, created all these things, and they got away with it. And he didn't do it by himself. Fauci didn't do this by himself.
No, Fauci didn't do it by himself, but he would get other people.
He collaborated very well.
Yeah.
He was the front, he's the fall guy, and the salesman. That's it.
Yep.
Well, it's just impressive that he seemed to be, he had this core group that he basically gave funds to and bought their cooperation. And when you got 5 or 6 guys going to say, no, this is wrong, you naturally want to believe the crowd over you want to believe the individual. And then the media. Yeah.
He didn't have cooperation. He had allegiance. People were connected with him to the end of their life, whatever it cost.
Well, he had complete control over all the funding for some, like, they gave that position that he was in extreme latitude in determining where money went. So he could light up programs and then kill you if you caused a problem. So it was like a regime of health
dictator
all through the CDC, NIH, all of it, all the way down. And that is why our hospitals are so dysfunctional. And we got a front row seat to see all that. Like, our local governments, like, I would go to like city council meetings and they have a CDC representative. Like, I call him the fat wizard. Like, he's literally just this giant 500-pound person going, oh, you gotta wear your mask. And it's just, you got viral, and I'm like, gee, oh my God, this is a nightmare. Like this can't be real. It's like everyone's behind one plexiglass sheet, just one, like this wide, right in front of you while you're speaking into a microphone. And then everyone behind them is like, they're like protected, I guess. And it was like one sheet in front of the podium of plexiglass, like this big. It was the most, and this was all over the world that this happened. So I'm not trying to change subjects from, I don't want to off ramp. You were on a great track there, but I think talking about personal experiences about what just happened is kind of important to remind people, because when I talk to people about it, it's like their minds have been wiped. They don't remember COVID-19. It's almost like it's been put out of their memory.
Yeah. And it was only 3 years ago that it finally ended.
Just,
yeah. And then it's like, we're not going to talk about it. It's all over.
Because everyone knows deep down they were lied to. Everyone knows it at this point. I'm sorry. Like, and that's why everyone's real hush hush. Like, you know, except for the neurotics that still wear masks running around. But
yeah, they're fun, aren't they? I had this lady the other day come up to me and I was talking to her. And she was wearing a mask and I couldn't hear a word she was saying. And I'm like, I can't. With that thing on your face, I can't hear what you're saying.
I just look at them like they're the Walking Dead. I'm like, oh, we lost one there. Sayonara. Like,
well, the thing I thought was impressive is there's almost 3 million employees if you take out the U.S. Postal Service, which has 2.4 million employees.
Yeah.
So if we don't include them, and there's 3 million employees that work for the United States federal government, and he was the top paid one in the whole entire country.
Mm-hmm.
And then he also got, because of what he did, the NIAID. the
NIAID, National Institute of NIAID.
Yeah, worked with all these pharma companies, so he would also get kickbacks in the form of patents that they helped come up with, and he was making like almost another $200,000 a year off of that. So this dude's making over $500,000 a year. $600,000.
They've been using pandemics as business models is one element of this, that it opens up the door for new, like they wanted to roll out a whole series of mRNA treatments after, like COVID was the opening salvo for mRNA gene therapy technology to be instituted into the public sphere. Like that, I mean, the vaccine thing, I would say, I mean, I've gone through maybe 3 to 4 pandemics, and I remember them when I was a kid. And the first one, the bird flu, or there was like 2 bird flus, and then swine flu, and then all this. And I'm like, and and after the first one, I was like, my mom was a nurse and she was scared, and I'm like, oh no, what do you think? Is it all going to be okay? And she's like, yeah, no, I think it'll be fine. And then anyway, I watched it all happen, and I'm like, I never met anyone that got it. Like, I'm like, and then as a kid, I was like 10. I'm like, so this is not, they're just clearly lying about it, like, or hyping it up or making it into a bigger deal for, like, I knew since I was a kid, the news hypes things up on purpose to trigger people's emotions. I didn't intellectually think about it. I was just aware that the news was a waste of time to watch. Like, it just was telling, like, I mean, because it doesn't give you a narrative. It just gives you a scene, a very narrow, a pinhole into reality, with no context or extrapol of like what's happening or the history. As a kid, I love stories, and a good story has a beginning, middle, and end, and then also maybe a prequel to give you some context into what you're dealing with. And if you're just hearing facts on the ground in the moment, I always knew like I didn't understand the whole situation because I didn't understand the whole situation. But all the adults around me think they're being informed by watching these little sound bites being thrown at them.
Well, the thing I thought was interesting is I was driving truck. I went off the road, and I did this local gig where I worked for the schools in 2009. So I worked for there like 6 months, and swine flu came out, and you barely, I don't remember hearing much about it, but everyone was like freaking out over it, and the schools were stockpiling food and all this other stuff. But I don't remember anything ever coming of it, but there was a pandemic, and it's like, well, it wasn't taken real seriously, and they did the opposite, and it kind of like burned out real quick and went away.
Here's where it got crazy for me. When I was in Michigan doing my grad school, people from the continent of Africa, and I try to remember where they were from. There's a bunch of mosquitoes in Michigan. If you've ever been there, there's a plethora. Minnesota, there's a plethora of mosquitoes, right? These people were terrified. They were like going into their homes and all that kind of stuff, because what did they carry? Diseases, right? All the diseases that the National Institute of Health and all this other stuff have been over there doing. The mosquitoes have been carrying them all over the place. And so in Michigan, these guys were just freaking out. And they're like, aren't you afraid? And aren't you worried about these things? And I was like, well, I lived in Minnesota, and I was what they sucked on for the summer because they like me. So I'm just used to them, right? With West Niles, with the flying swine flu and all that kind of stuff coming from mosquitoes, I believe, it terrified people. Because these little things fly around, land on you, stick their proboscis, I forgot what it is, into you, start sucking, and then they inject something into you.
Proboscis,
Yeah, proboscis, there we go. I forgot. My father-in-law has a butterfly game, and we had to learn all these different terms. And there's also a audio book and all that kind of stuff that had that in there too about the butterflies. And but anyways, getting back, this was terrifying to groups of people, right? And then for people like us, was it really terrifying? Because no, if you lived in here, there's not a lot of mosquitoes. Now there's more. If you lived up in Michigan in the north or east, you're terrified of the ticks because it got injected
Lyme disease.
with Rocky
Lyme
Mountain
disease.
and fever, and that's where a lot of these things came from. That's why we're terrified of the little things. If you think about it, all the little things we're terrified of, because what do they do?
The thing I think is
They carry
interesting
death.
is I was just one of the things I thought like Pfizer and Moderna. Do you know how much they make every year off of the N1H1 flu vaccine every year? Have you ever read about that?
It's got to be in the billions.
$7.97 billion is what they earned in 23, and last year it was 9.25 billion on flu shots.
Yep, and all that gets rolled into the insurance plans for the vaccine schedule. It's a extremely reliable business model that you can apply to every man, woman, and child within a nation state that applies, and you can scale up from it. And the only way to keep the Ponzi scheme going is to double and triple and quadruple. And I mean, we're up to what, 75, 72 vaccines on the schedule when it used to be like 10 back in the 70s.
There's 83 vaccines that children get.
That just children get, and then that doesn't count for like when people travel or go overseas and you got to get this and that or whatever. So no, keep going, Cody. If you have more points to hit, I got a few things, but
Cody, your brother in the beginning of the pandemic, didn't he buy into a stock?
Yeah, he bought into Moderna.
Yeah. How did he know?
Well, because he just gotten his friends that were in the army said that they saw these stockpiles of Moderna vaccines and that they were stockpiling it. So he went ahead and he goes, well, the army's buying it up. Then he went and got stock in it.
Because that was a new company.
Yeah, I don't know
they
if
never
that's
did a
insider
vaccine
trading
until this.
or
Yeah. No, I mean that's called a hookup. It's called
observation.
Smart. Moderna vaccines here. What does that mean? Stockpiling this stuff.
But what I found interesting,
he made bank on that too, didn't he?
In the first half of the decade, from the first 60 years of the last century, there was two outbreaks. There was the Spanish flu and the Asian flu. And then then you had the Hong Kong flu. So the Spanish flu was was alpha N1H1, which is still what we're dealing with today. And then they had H2N2, which was the Asian flu, and then they had HN3N2 was the Hong Kong flu, which killed like 4 million people worldwide. But the real kicker was the Spanish flu killed between 20 and 100 million people worldwide. It was real hard to do that. But if you look, if you look, how many pandemics did we have? Well, Fauci was in there. Have you ever looked into that, Collin?
Yeah, I mean, in my lifetime, it's all of them. Well, he's been in there for over 30 years.
Lyme disease in 72.
And we're still dealing with that.
Yeah. Here's something crazy. In the beginning of the pandemic, there was this white paper that was being published and put online where it took and it followed who was doing this gain of function. And it was actually started with a French guy. I can't remember his name, but he came to the United States at a certain time. And during the Vietnam era, they were testing a bunch of that stuff in Vietnam and around there. So this isn't something new, right? And then later on, so Vietnam era is how close to when Fauci gets in, and how close is it?
Well, he started in the what was it? I have that written down.
I used to have that on my phone.
He started working for the NIH, the National Institute of Health, in 1968, which was during the middle of Vietnam, Tet 68 and all that stuff. It's just how many of these things can be directly related to his flawed concept of like we need to develop viruses so we can come up with a cure.
And who was group thinking this too? Because he
Well, him
couldn't
and
come
Bill.
up with this on his own, right?
The thing that scared me is I remember watching a thing. I forget where it was. And I haven't been able to find it since. But like in 2019, I saw they had like basically a big group mind experiment on like what would it be like in the next pandemic, and they did that like months before. And
Event 201.
Yeah, is that what it is?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was like a war game in 20, I think it was the year before, 2018, 2017,
well,
maybe.
they said that the Wuhan flu got out, or
they said a SARS virus out of Asia would come and somebody on a plane, and then all of a sudden, and then the end result is always like they had false media personalities like going, this happened, then this happened. They had people run like different plays. And the answer to every scenario was you didn't clamp down hard enough, fast enough. You weren't, strict enough. And it was a training program to get the administrative state and the bureaucracy who doesn't know anything about systems, how anything works. All they know is procedure. So they've just been trained harder, faster, push it as hard as you can, as violently as you can. And even though it's harsh, it's for the greater good and you're saving lives, and that's why all those people acted the way they did. It's been programmed into them for decades.
Yeah, they've been brainstorming how they're going to do this for decades.
Yeah, that's not the only war game they've done. They've been doing this for a very long time. Almost every year.
So we had the Ebola outbreak in 2014, and then we had the recurrence in 2016 with Zika in 2015 to 2016.
Zika,
with SARS in 2003.
And I almost wonder if those were like, if it was understood at the higher levels that those were just simulations. Like we're gonna simulate.
But they were man-made releases,
right? So, but go ahead. Sorry.
So what I'm saying is since 1981, and he took over in what was it, 84? Yeah, 84. His first thing was the HIV/AIDS, which is still going on. Then we had SARS. So we went like 10 years with like nothing. We were like nothing was going on. But the SARS outbreak, they were brainstorming that virus chain. Ebola, they had his department had funded a lab in Africa to research Ebola, and all of a sudden it gets out of control and starts killing Africa. They were researching Zika, and it got out. And then they were saying, one thing that got me on the research is they knew immediately when they got the DNA strand of COVID-19, when they looked at I guess there's like all these letters that represent everything, and they broke it out, and they said it was a weaponized strain of Corona because it had AIDS, the AIDS carrier in it, like the same and that was genetically modified to have that AIDS carrier in it.
It's the HIV. It's a famous spike protein that everyone talks about, which is the HIV. It's the proboscis of the viral that allows it to penetrate cellular walls and integrate into the mitochondria and the DNA replication system. That's the story we're told anyway.
No, I've seen.
No, they have papers. This is like commonly accepted science. I doubt they know what they're talking about. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, keep going.
No.
What is your?
I'll just throw this out real quick that I personally have doubts that they even understand. You know how I always talk about, maybe not always, but I talk about how the modernist scientists believe, or they have this attitude that the world is made of billiard balls and everything can be digested down to smaller and smaller particles. At least that's the cosmology they want us all to believe, that matter is something that coalesces out of billions of years of randomness, and then now we're finding order within it randomly, or whatever. You make that work in your own head if you want to, but that viruses are DNA strands in the wild that are transmitted, basically, and that integrate into other DNA strands that cause mutations. That's the story. I could believe that. That makes sense, like, to a degree, but then it's like, it's got to be very specific to the human, though, to cause mass replication. Wonder how much our environmental changes affect our illnesses rather than just random things popping up out of the middle of nowhere.
My question is, from what I've been reading, and you tell me if I'm wrong, all of these things that keep happening, we go into the forest and we're looking for it. They basically took over the weaponizing of viruses from the military and the
NIH.
Yeah, that one. NIH and that sub-department that Fauci was head of. What was it?
National Institute of...
Yeah, the NI...
Oh my goodness. Allergies and... Yeah.
And...
I forgot the name. Department. Yeah, NIAID.
The National Institute of infectious diseases, allergies and infectious diseases.
Yeah, that's right.
So they and his whole premise is that, like, if we research this and we go out there, we can get ahead of it. But there's so much evidence now saying that everything they researched got away from them and got out into the wild. And then they blamed it on bats. And the thing that really pisses me off is I remember watching that smug asshole come out and talking about masks. And I had read that too, that masks were not effective because of the gaps and everything. And like only a real N95 mask could seal it all off. And he broke it down with color crayons and spice on TV, explaining exactly how it wouldn't work. And then he reversed himself later on, and everyone has to wear masks. And I think the mask thing is what really pissed me off, is because it was so I have videos somewhere of me going to the zoo, and I had my mask on the bridge of my nose, and I got accosted by two smug assholes walking up. It has to be up here, or we're going to have to ask you to leave, sir. You have to have the mask at the bridge by your eyes. It can't be at the bridge of your nose. I'm like, well, I wear glasses. If they're too high up, they fog my glasses and I can't walk and see. Well, it has to be here or we're going to kick you out. If you're going to violate our rules, it's just... And then they were giving permission to everyone to, like, these fucking phone numbers that you could call and, like, rat out your neighbor. It's just, oh, there we go.
There we go. This is going to be... Wait, it got down to what, 4 masks at a time?
Yeah, hang on. It's still buffering here.
Yeah.
Do you guys see it?
Well,
yeah, it's up there.
Video dropped out.
No, I think I got too many tabs open here.
It says you're low data.
Yeah. Okay, let me stop. Let me try.
But it's just
change this. But I have a few clips here that are short.
I remember the one of the most vivid memories I have is I had my friend Randy. He never wore... he's gone completely.
He'll come back.
But he
always does.
He never wore a mask. And we were in Oklahoma. I remember snowpocalypse. I think it was like 21 snowpocalypse. Remember when it hit Texas and everything got whited out and it was nuts?
Windmills down.
Yeah. Go figure. Windmills, huh?
Yeah. Iced up.
I remember, and I can link the two up because I remember that day me and my friend were convoying across the country, going to a power plant, but with line. And we went into a Denny's and we didn't wear masks because we didn't give a crap. I'm a fatalist. If God wants me, he can take me. And there is this officious prick standing in front of us, and he's sitting there and he's doing this gesture on his face. And my friend Randy looks at him and goes, "Why don't you grow a set and actually speak instead of gesturing, you And it was such it was so horrible. It was so annoying. I hated that crap.
But he got us to do it.
What?
He got the Americans to turn on each other.
The last day I went to Walmart, I remember, was March 18th, 2020. And I didn't walk into Walmart until I think it was almost 2.5 years later. I just didn't want to deal with it. So I just didn't go into Walmart. I got that Walmart Plus, and then here he is. Here's your video?
Story for you.
Sorry about that.
During the pandemic,
I got it streamlined now.
I got so bored that I had to go work at a donut shop early in the morning, working in the back. Yeah. And guess what we didn't do? Mask up. None of us did. Right. And then there's this one guy. He's one of those Democrat hardcore. He used to be a fire chief and all this kind of stuff.
Oh, I remember that guy. We went to, yeah.
Shoot, he went after how his family were killing everyone and all that kind of stuff. And guess what? He didn't have a mask on when he was telling us. He was so irate. I was like, yeah, if it was that important, you would have 4 masks and you would suffocate.
Well, I remember the day I got COVID. It was December 7th, because I remember it was Pearl Harbor Day. And I was driving across the Pueblo up there in Colorado. And I walked into there. I had the scarves, those big masks, that cover your whole face and go down, and a mask over the top of that, because I figured, that would double protect. And this lady said, you can't have face coverings. You have to have a mask. And I'm like, only a mask only. And I'm like, well, isn't like 2 layers better than one? And then I left, and I'm like, you know what? You guys I don't want to deal with this. I'm just going to leave. And I got accosted on my way out of the building because I told this lady she was a flippin' idiot. You're an idiot. I'm meeting your expectations and going past it. And this native gentleman out in the parking lot got in my face because they're all related or somehow that's my family. That was the first time that she was like screaming in my face. And I remember driving home from that. That's when I started feeling sick. And by the 11th, I was out, totally like out of commission. And then I was out for 3 weeks. Took me 3 weeks to recover from that crap. I was trying to fight it, man, but it hurt. It like got in your joints, and it was painful, man. Yeah.
So here it is. This is the crazy part. I got COVID according to the test a bunch of times, and I was like, it feels like just a little cold. And then I got the injections because I work for healthcare. You had to get it, or otherwise you'd lose your job.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right. So I got it. And then the second one, I called up my supervisor and I was like, I'm done. I'm going home. Cancel all my appointments. I can't do this, because everything that people felt from the COVID when they got it and all that kind of stuff came from the vaccine. When I got that vaccine, my body just shut down. I had all the chills, all the body ache, joint ache, everything. That's when my body changed.
Well, the thing that got me about that whole thing with the vaccine that they were pushing is how, when they were already working on it because they had already discovered it and they made it. So that's why they got it out so fast. As much as Trump wants to,
stockpiled it for the military.
They were already figuring out how to make it because they produced it. Come to find out.
Do you remember the patent date?
As 2015?
Yep.
During Obama?
Yep.
And they are the two
during when they discontinued gain of function, supposedly.
Yeah, supposedly.
Obama said, we can't do it here, but they patent the stuff. And they send it to
you know where they were
Wuhan.
doing it? Conveniently, the 2 places that were most popular for doing that crap, Ukraine and China. And when was the first thing that Putin attacked when he went in there? When was the first buildings they blew up? Where all the labs, where all the...
They had all that. Lavrov or whoever their chief guy came out to the UN or to the United Nations Security Council, and he basically like flat out said, I posted it, and I'm like, The Russians have just called out the West for building bioweapons labs right on their border and said, we've now seized them and you guys this is out of control.
But the thing that you talk about bioweapons labs, this is the thing that I was just digesting on, is Anthony Fauci is essentially a traitor because he went to our enemy, which is China. Everyone's known for the last 10 years, 15 years, that they're going to be the next people we're fighting. And he went to them in order to sidestep and get around what he thought was important, funded their lab, and he gave a known enemy to the United States.
Look, all of our elites have gone to China. All of them.
Oh, I know.
Like, it's...
Well, I'm not saying he's the only one.
This was... Right, but this is important because it's like, if we have this imagination of like we're in a third or fourth world war, depending on your perspective, if you think our enemy is China, I would argue you're not seeing to the deeper levels yet. China is a nation state just like ours. How many factions do we have in our country? You know, it's like to say that because that's the old paradigm that it's nation states fighting. We're dealing with globalists, internationalists, people that are nationless, people that operate under secret codes and total different rules. And they stand above us on Mount Olympus and watch the nation states and the people that believe in patriotism and nationalism. And they use that impulse for social engineering purposes to manipulate people in one way or another. I would just like the argument when Bush sent Skullcroft over to China during post Tiananmen Square, they basically said
the first Bush.
Bush Senior. They said, if you put this down, we'll work with you. We'll shut down our media. It won't be a problem. We got you covered. We're basically going to send our manufacturing over to you, and we're going to make you, preferred nation or special or whatever that status is. And because in the mindset back then, like today, China is viewed as a modern peer. Back then, it was viewed as a third world. Yeah, exactly. It was a third world peasant country, and it was sold that, well, we're going to lift them up with democracy, and freedom and Americanism, and everyone will love it. Well, the students in Tiananmen Square had a paper mache statue of the Statue of Liberty. And they were trying, there was a nationalist movement to overthrow the communist regime at that time. That's what that was all about. We don't know how many people were actually killed. Everyone thinks of Tank Man. The estimates range from a minimum of 20,000 to hundreds of thousands of people were exterminated all throughout the country, not just in Tiananmen Square. It was used as a moment to go in and with harsh police action and take out let the poppies grow, let 1,000 flowers rise. It's like you create space to see who is not with the program, let them raise their heads up and then mow the lawn and then scare the hell out of everyone and start over again. And that's why the Chinese, I've met a lot of Chinese when I've been traveling. They are terrified to their core. You could just smell the fear off of them. They're they're just not, I feel really, I was confused by it until later in life. I was like, why are they so scared? It's like they're a nation of trauma victims. So anyway, the point being, we sold out the idea was United States, this Thucydides trap of allowing one nation to become the hegemony of the whole planet naturally leads to global conflagration or war, is the argument that they give. That all the other nation states will just pile on and destroy the big guy. So instead of having one global domineering empire, we're just going to manage nation states and move the hegemon from one entity to another. When I was growing up in I took economics in college. All the articles were the rise of China, China's the next big thing. It's like, it was just bam every day. It was just inundated with China. China has it all figured out. They're going to supersede us in the next 5 years, 10 years, whatever. And in their logic, I guess, or the way they sell it is, well, this is how we avoid a fourth or third world war. You move the power structure over to another entity and you run your Ponzi schemes out of that and then allow collapse to happen within the old, like what happened in Europe during World War II. It's like a vacuum went into Europe and all the wealth got transferred over to the American financialist system, which really is a British financialist system, if you know how banking works. And it's a giant Ponzi scheme of allowing civilizations to rise, boom, bust cycle at a civilizational level of wealth extraction.
I got to do this real quick.
Yep, go ahead.
And who did it, Colin? Who did it? He has to say it. It's the pod. He has the podcast tradition. He has to say who's at fault.
British, Dutch, Rome.
There you go. The Dutch. It all comes back to the Dutch. Sorry.
But right now,
this part of the.
It does look like the China. No, it's fine. Because to me, it blew my mind when I've discovered that. Like it made the 1700s make so much more sense when I realized that the focal point of power wasn't really the British. It wasn't just the British. It was Amsterdam. I was like, hang on. But then I looked at the Dutch East India Trading Company and all the entities that were flowing out of there. And I'm like, they were the central bank of the world, including for Britain and us. Like, who did John Adams go to? I don't want to go into the now you got me on a rabbit trail. So we'll just stop there. We're talking about Anthony Fauci. Let's go back. Sorry. Let's get back on track.
Pump the brakes.
Yeah. No, don't get me. I don't want to get down. I don't want to do that again. I do have some clips here that might get us back on track. They're very short. I think it'll work now.
Well, so one of the topics I wanted to talk about was his flip-flop.
I literally have a clip about this.
All right. There you go.
That was exactly what I was about to bring up.
It leads in perfectly then.
Got a little lag here. Hang on. Okay. Tell me if you can hear it.
Perspective to the topic today is the issue of pandemic preparedness. And if there's one message that I want to leave with you today, based on my experience, and you'll see that in a moment, is that there is no question that there will be a challenge to the coming administration in the arena of infectious diseases, but also there will be a surprise outbreak.
I don't know how many times I can say it, Madam Chair. We did not fund gain-of-function research to be conducted in the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Anyway, so let me just go on about NIH lifts funding pause on gain-of-function research that might be anticipated to create, transfer, or use enhanced potential pandemic pathogens. I don't think this is going to be foolproof. Things are going to slip through.
If it may have been a lab, may have been nature, we're supposed to look forward, then why did Dr. Fauci work so hard for just one of those theories?
I'm almost have to laugh at that, Neil. I mean, that's totally bizarre. First of all, I wasn't leaning totally strongly one way or the other. I've always kept an open mind.
As you know, there's a sort of urban legend that there's a biological warfare center in Wuhan and that the coronavirus escaped from that. Did you have any sense of where it probably came from?
I think ultimately we know that these things come from an animal reservoir. I've heard these conspiracy theories, and like all conspiracy theories, Newt, they're just conspiracy theories.
I wasn't leaning totally strongly one way or the other. I've always kept an open mind.
Fauci versus Fauci.
Right now, people should not be walking. There's no reason to be walking around with a mask. Should you be wearing 2 masks or 1 mask? I often myself wear 2 masks. Can we make a general recommendation that doesn't have scientific basis yet? No. please wear a mask. The chances of my getting infected in an indoor setting is extremely low. And that's the reason why in indoor settings now, I feel comfortable about not wearing a mask because I'm fully vaccinated. When you're in a congregate indoor setting, wear a mask. First of all, I didn't recommend locking anything down. I went with Dr. Birx into the president and said, 15 days are not enough. We need to go 30 days. Obviously, there were people who had a problem with that because of the potential secondary effects. Nonetheless, at that time, the president went with the health recommendations, and we extended it another 30 days. First of all, I didn't recommend locking anything down. So the worst possible thing you could do is vaccinate somebody to prevent infection and actually make them worse. This would not be the first time, if it happened, that a vaccine that looked good in initial safety actually made people worse. Well, the latter part of what you just said is untrue. You don't get worse results from vaccinating.
He really has the flu. She definitely doesn't need a flu vaccine.
The optimal degree of protection when you get infection is to get vaccinated after infection.
Because the best vaccination is to get infected yourself.
The optimal degree of protection when you get infection is to get vaccinated after infection.
He really has the flu. She definitely doesn't need a flu vaccine.
So if you're saying, are we out of the pandemic phase in this country? We are.
Is this country ready for another pandemic? And are we still in the one we have not, that we've been talking about?
Well, we certainly are still in it.
Anyway, I don't know how much. Okay, it's almost over.
There's a lot.
Clearly established. The long-term effects that the people are apparently concerned about really have with I'm sure there is a very, 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 very rare exception, but the long-term effects are really essentially non-existent.
Do we have any data about, vaccines and the back end of that, or the negative side of that? There's been a number of studies. New York Times just did one about menstruating cycles and how that is affected by vaccines.
Yeah, the menstrual thing is something that seems to be quite transient and temporary. That's the point. That's one of the points. We need to study it more. We need to study it. Because the other side that just keeps putting out misinformation and disinformation seems to be tireless in that effort.
An article in the San Francisco Examiner, I think, the Sunday magazine section, which was just phenomenal. I still have a picture of it. It says, I call you murderer, an open letter to an incompetent idiot, Dr. Anthony Fauci, the director of NIAID.
All right. I like that thumping sound that came with it. Made it ominous.
Yeah, I like the heartbeat there. Anyway, so that makes the whole point that we're trying to explain right there. Like the clear inconsistency of the master of science. So, which anyone with eyes that was paying attention was, it was popular. Like so many people were talking and observing this. Like it wasn't even, it actually is part of the reason why I'm really happy you guys brought this up, because I wasn't sure exactly what your opinion on this whole thing exactly is, because most people, when it comes to things or systems or science, as we call it, that we don't like, especially if you're not trained in it and you don't understand it and you haven't researched it, it's akin to magic. Like it may as well be a magic trick. You don't know what you're talking, like, you just have to rely on some external force, like what I was talking about with the Ugandans, that surely there's no malevolent intent. That's crazy. So there, anyway, so does that redirect back to where you wanted to go, Cody?
Well, the thing that I think is the most impressive is the people they tried to destroy who got in their way. And they're still trying to destroy with They went after Robert Kennedy. They're still trying to,
thousands of doctors have lost their license. I wish the number was tens of thousands. Unfortunately, it's thousands. That's how few stood up against this.
Because it didn't make any sense. It's just like here in New Mexico, they gave out orders. I swear, one of the saddest things I watched was the death of small restaurants that happened because everyone didn't know what the hell they were talking about. The lady here said, okay, we're going to lift the mandate. You can go back into restaurants. These restaurants spent hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars, re-gearing up and restocking their refrigerators. Before they even could recoup that money, she shut it all back down and and they lost all that money. And I think they said 7,000, 8,000.
The big box stores were able to do whatever they want. Here's something that was really interesting that during COVID up here in Old Town, there's a restaurant, and a guy that I know, still know, great friends with him. Yeah, he was on their Department of Health or stuff like that. And he would go and check out restaurants and all that kind of stuff. And this restaurant didn't shut down, no mask. And they gave him warnings and all that kind of stuff. And then they served him a warrant. And this guy was a part of it because he was part of the health department and stuff. And they went to court and they're all prepared. And they go up in front of the judge, and the judge, the plaintiff goes, well, you didn't serve the owner of the whatever it's called, summons and all that kind of stuff. He's like, what do you mean? You gave this to me. I'm not the owner of this. I just work here. Like the judge goes, who's the owner? Turns to the prosecutor and like, we don't know. Seriously, truth. They had no idea who owned this restaurant. They couldn't shut it down. They kept on serving food, alcohol, and all that kind of stuff through that. And it was a testing ground because all the other businesses were watching what would happen if one of us stood up, and how would they treat us? They basically tried to take them to court and just, annihilate them. So they couldn't have a business ever again. They couldn't make any money, that they would just be totally under. But I don't know who owns this place, but they did it in such a way that the city still, I don't think they even know who owns it. That's crazy. And so they weren't able to shut it down. It kept going throughout the COVID. It was making pretty good money. They tried to pull the liquor license and all that kind of stuff. They still sold. And they just couldn't stop them.
The key to investment is timing. And if you know when to go in and when to get out, that's how you make a profit.
Yep.
There's whole industries about this. That's why information is so important to these people, because it's really all comes down to timing. And the turnover of old entities and new ones that came in, and the commercial real estate market, which to me is was the bellwether for the general economic collapse, which I'm still not totally sure how that's going to work out. But the point is that we way overextended commercial real estate. But the thing is, if you look at it, like people look at it at a national level, if you zoom out at a global level, like look what the Chinese do. They build whole cities that are empty to park money that in places that no one works and no one lives in, because real estate is a trust asset. That is collapsing like light speed over there. Where in the planet can you park your money safely? Why is gold spiking? Yeah, gold's neutral. Yeah, sure, you can do all that. But if everyone chooses to park their money in a stable environment, the United States is a pretty good spot. Why is BlackRock? Why are all these big banks coming in and buying up whole neighborhoods? All these houses, and then as they buy it, property taxes skyrocket. People get squeezed out of their homes, buy it up again. And they'll pay the margins, the taxes, all that stuff. That's meaningless. It's about keeping their general cash fund, like they'll take the hit on the margins. That's not a problem for them, but they get to keep 80 or 90% of their equity in that home when they buy it. And if everyone piles in at once, and that's what's happening right now, that's why everyone's property taxes are going through the freaking roof. The whole world is coming here right now and buying up everything. And the pandemic is what kicked this whole thing off. I mean, really, you could go back further, but this was like, that was the starter pistol. And then the people that understand how this is going to unfold over time know where to place their bets. That's what I'm not the first person to say that.
I've heard the same thing too. Because those big entities aren't stupid. They're there to win. Just like the banks, they're always there to win. They're not there to lose.
They cannot lose. They literally cannot lose.
Well, some of the things I remember that were impressive is remember over Grants, New Mexico? Corey, remember over there? They refused to shut the town down, and the police department met the state police were going to come in and shut all the businesses down, and they met them at the city limits and turned the cops around and told them to get the hell out of there. Yeah, cops versus cops going after each other. That was pretty interesting.
I think heard about that.
Oh, you didn't?
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
Whenever you go ahead, sorry.
But the flip side is, we had these activist groups came in through Albuquerque. They came in through so many other places. They were able to do whatever they wanted, and they also helped destroy businesses, small mom and pop stores and stuff like that. And so if the pandemic didn't kill them off, they did. They came and killed them off. The interesting story for my sister in Amarillo, Texas, is those groups came into their town, and the sheriffs and the police officers told them, hey, this is how this city works. The sidewalk up to this point is a city, so anybody can use. But beyond this, right where the bar was, they're like, that's their property. Now, if you get onto their property and you start doing your stuff, they're legally allowed to react to that. And my sister said they had people on the roof of that bar, and they had things pointed at these activists. And what they did is they walked right through, right back on the bus, and left because they couldn't do anything. Now, you just pose that to Albuquerque, and the police were like a block or two away, did nothing, not a thing. Business is burnt down, and it doesn't matter race, color, gender, nothing. They destroyed and burnt things down, and they didn't survive. They went under.
Where was what about that during that same time, that town up in Idaho? They'd gone into Spokane, Washington, and just like looted and rioted all that stuff, and over in Seattle, and they were making their way across. And these activists went into this small town in Idaho during all this, and the sheriff came in and deputized all of the town. And basically, y'all can come in here if you're all going to be polite and nice. You can do whatever you want, but if you're going to start, that's a cop, that's a cop, that's a cop. It's like, what? And then that's when that Fergus, what is it? The Summer of Love over there in Minneapolis with that cop in that.
You'll notice
Floyd.
All the cities that had massive riots, like where there was actual property damage. Weird trivia fact.
Bring it on.
The primary areas where there is a regional Federal Reserve branch. Because the people think the Federal Reserve is like a singular, like it's the temple in DC. There's regional, sections all over the place. But there's
like one in Denver, San Francisco.
Do you remember that bomb that went off in that building in
Oklahoma?
No. This was like a few years after COVID. There was literally like a building that exploded, and you could see like a missile went into it. Like it just went like just boom. Like,
are you talking about the one downtown Nashville?
I think so. Yeah, that one. Yeah, and that's right on the same street. Like those areas. It's so on the nose that I'm even hesitant to bring it up a little bit. But it's like, really, Why? Anyway, I don't even know. I don't know the answer to that question. It's just there. If you go back in time and you look at violent activity around the Federal Reserve areas, it's kind of stark. It kind of it's like, wow, that's interesting. Like all the real estate just dropped off a map and then got bought up after the Summer of Love in those regions by usual actors. I do have two more things here, and this goes back to first, but I don't want to change. I don't want to derail you guys if you're on a flow. So
No,
it's in regards to so do you know Kerry Mullis, the inventor of the PCR test? Okay. Well, remember everyone was making a big deal about the PCR test, right? So this is like, that was the metric that supposedly we were measuring this virus, right? So
okay.
even though no one was using it, like if you were using nasal swabs, that is not a PCR test. That's measuring basically the pH level in your detritus of your mucus that hints that you may have the symptoms of a COVID-like virus or a coronavirus, which is the common cold. So if you ever took there is no way to, with a nasal swab and a quick test like that, without a full molecular analysis to figure out what exactly you have. Like,
here's something for you.
Yeah.
So I was hearing these stories of nurses that would take that test, open up, stick it into the vial, break it off, seal it up, and send it down to the lab.
Yep.
Every single one of them popped positive. And so I did a test myself. I'm like, yeah, this can't be true. And so I did the same thing. And guess what happened?
Tested
every
positive?
single time I popped positive, even though it never got close to my face. And then my wife, she had to take the COVID test and stuff like that. And there was like these places where you can go get your COVID test and all that kind of stuff. And they can rapid, know if you have it or not. And she went and did it. And they're like, oh, yeah, you're clear. Guess what? They weren't even testing. It was a scam. Yeah,
they were.
Those scams got bigger
had
and bigger.
There were presidents or leaders of countries, like I think the president of Tanzania, I think he was assassinated. He literally took a test and he's like, "Here, this is a tangerine. We're now swabbing it for COVID-19. Oh wow, look at that, it's positive." Like there were a bunch of those guys, and they were all of them. There were like 5 assassinations of national leaders in Africa during this time, and they were all against this. They openly talked against it. They're like, this is BS. We've been through this rodeo before. We're not doing this. You're going to get us all killed. Like, we cannot shut down. We're not going to shut down our countries, and we're just not going to go along with this. And they all got killed. So this is Kerry Mullis.
What did Kerry say?
So this is the inventor of the PCR test, which is the standard of what all this madness is about. This is him talking about Fauci. I got 2 clips on this. They're very short.
Okay.
What is it about humanity that wants to go to all the details and stuff and listen? These guys like Fauci get up there and start talking. He doesn't know anything really about anything, and I'd say that to his face. Nothing. The man thinks you can take a blood sample and stick it in an electron microscope, and if it's got a virus in there, you'll know it. He doesn't understand.
By the way, real quick, look at his death date.
2019.
Literally months before this thing went down, because he would have been all over this.
And he's the expert.
He doesn't understand medicine. He should not be in a position like he's in. Most of those guys up there on the top are just total administrative people, and they don't know anything about what's going on the bottom. Those guys have got an agenda, which is not what we would like them to have, being that we pay for them to take care of our health in some way. They've got a personal kind of agenda. They make up their own rules as they go. They change them when they want to, and they smugly, like Tony Fauci, does not mind going on television in front of the people who pay his salary and lie directly into the camera. You can't expect the sheep to really respect the best and the brightest. They don't know the difference, really. I mean, I like humans. Don't get me wrong, but basically, the vast majority of them do not possess the ability to judge who is and who isn't a really good scientist. I mean, that's a problem. That's a main problem, actually, with science, I say, in this century, because science is being judged by people. Funding is being done by people who don't understand it. Okay, who do we trust? Fauci? Fauci doesn't know enough to, if Fauci wants to get on television with somebody who knows a little bit about this stuff and debate him, he could easily do it because he's been asked. I mean, I've had a lot of people, president of the University of South Carolina asked Fauci if he'd come down there and debate me on the stage in front of the student body, because I wanted somebody who was from the other side to come down there and balance because I felt like, well, these guys can listen to me, but I need to have somebody else down here that's going to tell me the other side. But Fauci didn't want to do it.
So he's talking about Chapel Hill, South Carolina. And that is where COVID was patented or formed out of, or what we call COVID, SARS-CoV-2, whatever it is, that strain that they ran with. That's the paper trail leads to Chapel Hill, South Carolina, that went to Fort Detrick and then to Wuhan. That's the paper trail that we currently have. I don't know how real that is, but that's on record, the logic they're operating off of. So that, so there's one more, and this is regarding the PCR test. So this is Carrie Mullis here. Any thoughts on that real quick before I do this one?
No, I don't. Makes total sense to me. Get rid of all the naysayers, all the people that are going to cause you to make money.
But he was so right, because he knew the guy so well, that even after he died, right, he predicted how this guy Fauci would react, right? And Fauci followed that whole line.
Well, he was against him during the AIDS virus. Like, he was like one of the guys, like he was like, that's what like got him out, like doing interview. He was a scientist. He was just doing his work. Like, he invented this thing. And then Fauci took his system, the PCR test, and that's how they were testing for AIDS. And he was like, this is BS. You can't test for this with this system. It's not meant for that. He's like, he's lying. The inventor of it was going around all like to whoever would listen to him, but this is before the internet. And
before it really had taken off. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's in this book as well. It's documented. So, I mean,
So Colin, there's another thing. So what Fauci did in his group is they had scientists peer review one or a couple of scientists' papers, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're just peer reviewing.
Peer review.
I asked my wife about this, and I was like, why aren't they doing their own research? Why are they peer reviewing someone else's stuff?
It's like the temple. Peer review is like the temple. It's the magisterium that gives the blessing of what is reality. And it's these magical peers. Like, who are these people? You select them. Okay, got it. Like,
and it's pseudo science. It's false science.
It's total.
It's not science at all.
It's a cult. With it. Yeah, it's not even a cult. It's a Ponzi scheme of. It's just a Ponzi scheme. Listen, like, I love what he said. Is like, I love humans. I like humans. He didn't say I love. I like humans. That's a weird thing to say.
Yeah.
But that's the mindset of these people that can see things at a higher technical level than most other people. They naturally see themselves apart because they see things that normies can't. And they look around at the sheep, and he kind of meant it endearingly. It's like, I feel bad for them. Like, I don't want them to be slaughtered like this. This is awful. That was my take of it anyway. But most of them, but that's the mindset at that level. They don't look at us as human beings. They're just like, we're entities, not even entities. We're collective hive minds that they manipulate for a grander purpose, an agenda. Like you said, and what is that agenda? We can talk about that at a later date, maybe. All right, I'll do this. This is a 3-minute, and this is Carrie Mullis talking about his PCR test. Go ahead. Yep.
Then I want to talk about the link between leprosy and AIDS.
Okay.
Remember that? Or is it leprosy, or is it
leprosy and AIDS?
Or is it polio?
That rings a bell, but I'm not sure exactly. But that does kind of ring a bell.
I've never heard that before. But let's watch the video.
All right, this is 3 minutes.
I want to ask this to Carrie. How do they misuse PCR to estimate all these supposed free viral RNAs that may or may not be there?
I think misuse PCR is not quite. I don't think you can misuse PCR. The results, the interpretation of it. See, if you can say, if they could find this virus in you at all, and with PCR, if you do it well, you can find almost anything in anybody. It starts making you believe in the sort of Buddhist notion that everything is contained in everything else, right? I mean, because if you can amplify one single molecule up to something that you can really measure, which PCR can do, then there's just very few molecules that you don't have at least one single one of them in your body, okay? So that could be thought of as a misuse of it, just to claim that it's meaningful. But the real misuse of it is you don't need to test for HIV. You don't need to test for the other 10,000 retroviruses that are unnamed also in the subject. See, somebody that's got HIV generally is going to have almost anything that you can test for, because they have definitely been, HIV is a fairly rare virus. There's only 1 million of us out of 250, 300 million people in America that have that virus. So you have to get around, either your mother had to have it and pass it to you, or you have to really be paying a lot of attention to people that do have it and paying only attention to them and get a pretty good chance of getting it that way. It's hard to get it, but if you have it, there's a chance you've also got a lot of other ones. Because you've been in the market where it's been possible for you to get a lot of. To test for that one and say that has any special meaning is what I think is the problem. Not that PCR has been misused. It's like it's not an estimation. No, it's a really quantitative thing. It tells you something about nature and about what's there, but it allows you to take a very minuscule amount of anything and make it measurable, and then talk about it in meetings and stuff like it is important. See, that's not a misuse, that's just sort of a misinterpretation.
Even after all these PCR, this quantitative PCR, that if you just get down to a basic virological count, it's still 1 in 1,000 to 1 in 10,000 HIV, and 1 to 1 in 1,000, 1 in 500 to 1 in 1,000 T cells.
It is. No, there's very little of what they call HIV, and what's been brought out here by Philpott and Isai already. The measurement for it is not exact at all. It's not as good as our measurement for things like apples. An apple is an apple. You know, you can get something that's kind of like, you got enough things that look kind of like an apple, and you stick them all together, you might think of it as an apple. But and HIV is like that. Those tests are all based on things that are invisible, and the results are inferred in a sense. PCR is separate from that. It's just a process that's used to make a whole lot of something out of something. That's what it is. But it's not. It doesn't tell you that you're sick, and it doesn't tell you that the thing you ended up with really was going to hurt you or anything like that. That's what it's not.
So even if you believe in HIV, it can't tell the difference between virus particles or active live virus. I mean, there's a lot of questions involved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So real quick, just on the back end of that, so the way to think of that is so the PCR test basically clones an entity that's in a sample, and you target that entity for cloning to see if it's there through the load in the sample. An easier way of thinking about it is that it's like testing to see whether or not your car has oil, not how much is in it. It's kind of important to know how much oil is in your car. Like, you might have a drop or a couple liters, or quarts or whatever, The tell is the viral load. If we're assuming that, if this thing is spreading throughout your body, it's not whether or not it's there, it's how expressive is it in your body. They never tested for that. The whole system of the PCR and why it was so beautiful for these people is it will pop when they want it to pop. It's designed that way. It's not designed for a diagnosis tool at all. He's just so much of a nerd that it doesn't come across very clearly, but the way I explained it is like, you cannot use it for diagnosis, period. And that was the entire.
But you can, when you're watching his face and his body language, he is trying to get something across to these people that are not scientific, right?
Yeah.
And he's really working hard. If you watch his face and his body language, he's really trying to work hard to dumb it down to a point where these people would understand, like you and me.
That's
right?
why I'm saying he's too much of a nerd that he doesn't know what dumb is. That's a part of the problem. Like he doesn't know, like okay, like,
he's way up there.
Yeah. Like the oil example is the best one that I've ever heard, and it makes the most sense. And that's basically what he's saying. It's viral load, assuming that viruses behave the way they do. Like if you're infected, it would, we could assume under their logic that it's everywhere in your body. But if you got a residual bit of it, you can make this pop in any sample you want, or something that looks like it. Because what is a coronavirus? Oh, I don't know. The most common strain of cold flu virus known to man.
Yeah. Well, I remember one of the most vivid memories I had is I was up in it was the day that they found COVID in New Mexico, and I was in the city of Socorro, was like patient 0 in New Mexico, and I was there, so I got like taken aside. But I was sitting there, and this was hitting the news in early March, late April, early March, when they were talking about it. And we were reading on the back of the cans for disinfectants, coronavirus, all the different viruses. And coronavirus was one of the number ones that the disinfectant killed. And that's when I became aware that a coronavirus, they're very common. They're not an unknown thing in the world. So.
No, sorry.
I know, it was just.
My daughter's crying.
Uh-oh, what's he doing now?
My daughter's crying.
Okay.
Might need to go need to go help her out.
Okay, we'll keep this going. Okay.
So when it comes to the tests and stuff like that, I was watching the Joe Rogan show, and he had this guy on that could test the blood and could figure out what was going on with the body. And this connects with Dana White, the guy that owns UFC and stuff, right? Just a powerhouse, making tons of money and all that kind of stuff. Well, his health was tanking. He couldn't figure out why. And he went, and Joe Rogan connected him with this other guy. I can't remember his name. So on one of his podcasts a couple of years ago, and he said, hey, test him. And so he did. And he goes, well, this is what's wrong with you, and these are the ways that we can fix it. And so slowly they started fixing what was going on with this guy, Dana White. And then he's got so much energy, lost weight, mind's clear, and all that kind of stuff. And then you look at what pseudoscience, false science does. And they say, hey, we got the stuff that will figure out what's all ailing you. And it doesn't do anything. And they're just throwing darts at a dartboard. Like, it might be this, might be that. Well, it seems like science or medical science is more of throwing darts at a dartboard, because most of the time they don't know. They have no clue. Well, let's try this medication. Let's try that. Let's send you for this biopsy. Let's send you for that. Most of the time, they have no clue what's going on. Have you
they're like the mechanics.
The same thing?
They're like we have mechanics that are we call them shotgun mechanics. They have no freaking idea what's wrong with the car, but they just start throwing parts at it. Could be this, could be that, could be this, could be that, could be, could be the starter.
Yeah.
Could be the flywheel ring. It could be brake master cylinder. It could be this, instead of doing diagnostics and starting process of elimination and working through. And that was the big thing when I was in college is I took several classes on diagnostics when I was getting my automotive engineering degree, and learning how to think about like cause and effect. It's just shaped my whole world. It's like observation. How do you go from here? You work your way back through the system. This is not okay. I did this, then change, go through the system, on and on and on. And a lot of these doctors don't know how to diagnose crap. They're just doing the shotgun. We're just gonna, what we're gonna do? We're gonna take a little bit of your blood and we're gonna just throw it at the they could see what we find.
Mm-hmm.
There's no diagnostics there.
Or very, very low diagnostics. When I was taking my computer class, C++, we learned the flow chart and all that kind of stuff. I still use that. Dude, that is a powerhouse of a flow chart. I flow charted so many things off of that and figured things out. But it basically, is this working? Yes or no? And so you're just going down like that diagnostic that you're talking about. Not a lot of people can do that. Yeah, it seems like they're more idiots. Almost. Yeah. And
that's the reason. And remember Jason Anderson that came on?
Mm-hmm.
That's the reason he makes so much money. He can think in that realm of diagnostics, cause and effect. And he knows how to like see what the whole system is and what could cause this and where would you start looking at what a problem would be. Oh, it's just the thing that, back to the whole Fauci thing, I think the thing that really gets me really pissed off is how they're still going after, was it
Kennedy?
Robert Kennedy? Yeah, still going after Kennedy.
Because if he wins, what would happen?
They look like idiots.
Yeah. To the whole world. And if it gets out that they're that big of an idiot, because there's several countries, I think Russia is one of the big pushers to bringing Fauci and all the other people to
military tribunal.
Yep. Yeah. For crime against humanity. Not in America. Humanity, the whole world. Yeah. And if they are trying to stop that from every single angle before it can get to the tribunal. They did it in our Congress, but they're trying to do it everywhere else. And for some reason, Kennedy has such a huge pull. There's something about him, and I think they're terrified of him because
the disturbing thing
is, if they don't shut it all down, he's going to be. What did they do at their tribunals if they found him guilty?
They hang him
live.
Well,
I'm not going to be satisfied. I mean, it's like, if this doesn't call for bringing back public executions, nothing, like, it's just, then I guess we're going to be peaceful Zen Buddhists from now on. Like, I don't.
Well, the thing that was so interesting is their same old game of just bullshitting their way through things. Gavin Newsom is just such a classic example of just bullshitting his way through. There's not a word that comes out of his mouth that is true. And you can see through it. And it's like their magic of bullcrap is just disappearing because of all this. No one trusts any of these people anymore because of they've lost trust in the public domain.
No, there's people they do trust.
A lot.
Well, not intelligent people.
I know, but this is also where
they worship them.
The replacement migration thing is all about, or people that are institutionalized. Like, people are willing to go into cognitive dissonance to protect their livelihood every single time. I mean, not every single time, but like 100th of a percentile of people are willing to stand in the breach, and that's being generous.
You know where we're going to end up with if we don't change this real quick? Idiocracy. You ever see that movie?
Dude, we're well beyond Idiocracy. Like, we're well beyond it. It is now a prolific, profound movie to watch. It's like, wow, okay, this is like philosophy now. It's not funny to me anymore. It's like, oh God, I wish we had Idiocracy.
Well, and they said it was like 300 years in the future. It didn't take them that long.
No.
It took them a lot less time.
No, and the trajectory
Hey,
we're
so
on.
Cody, you wanted to talk about leprosy and HIV?
I think it was leprosy. They were doing. The problem is, I was reading about it. Leprosy is a bacterial infection. So I think it was like
on the skin.
Yeah, it's a bacterial infection. So it might have been polio that they were researching in Africa.
Polio, it was.
Yeah, they were researching polio, and they were so desperate to cure polio in Africa that they got these monkeys. Remember that part of the documentary I sent you?
The kidneys, wasn't it?
They got the kidneys. They had problems with the kidneys. They had this weird infection in their kidneys. But they went ahead and used those monkeys, the orangutans, anyways, as their test bed. And that's how they that's where the viral load was in there from those monkeys. and then they pulled the samples out of them, even though they knew there was this weird thing going on in there, and then they released it. They injected it. The virus, I think it was HIV, was in those monkeys that they had put the polio vaccine into, so they could get the, what is it? They start generating
antibodies.
The antibodies, and they were pulling the antibodies off of the orangutans, but they had the HIV virus in their kidneys, and they pulled it out, started replicating it, and started giving it to the people, and that's what they were saying caused HIV to get out in the population. And part of one of the people that came up with the protocol for all that, even that was a little before his time, was like in the 70s. But one of the people that was directly involved in that came up with that decision, even though they didn't know what that virus was, with Anthony Fauci. And literally, the more I read about him and the more I look into him, he is the classic example of failing upward. Everything he's touched has turned to crap, and he keeps getting promoted. Classic example of government, we're going to fail upward.
But, right. That's the common phrase that's thrown out about him, because you're right. If you measure everything he's done on even their metrics of success, it's all bad. And yet he still is propagated as Saint Anthony Fauci. What does that tell you?
Remember the candles?
Oh, yeah.
The Fauci candles they were lighting?
Mm-hmm. So what does that tell you about how the system works? Because now that tells you, like, the whole system, like, the system is, like, first off, you got to go, like, what is the system? And that's a whole separate conversation that I'm not going to get into, but it begs the question. Like, that's the most impressive thing of this whole event was, how the hell did they get every media apparatus around the planet, including China, to play ball with this? And Russia. Russia too. Because, believe it or not, people think like, oh, Russian state media controls the minds of the Russian people. At that time, I don't think that's the case.
The whole world was so scared of this crap. How could you control it?
Exactly. But what was the medium of God? How did that, look, how did that happen? What was the apparatus in place to make the entire planet, despite language barriers, cultural barriers, histories, all be on the same page, doing the same protocols, the same talking points all across the world?
World Health Administration.
Well, the
media and the World Health.
Right, but this told us something. This was a clue. They have the entire global media apparatus synchronized.
That's crazy.
I still can't believe it, but that's what happened.
It's really hard to bite off. It's really think that you could get that many people on that synced in is hard to believe, because if you've ever worked with large
it happened.
Well,
Sorry.
I think a person is intelligent. A group of people are morons. So I always fall back to how can they get a group of people to do this? And the fact that the media, I keep coming back to this idea, there has to be some puppet master pulling the strings. And if you go up the string far enough, you'll eventually find the hand. And the more I try to look into whose hand is it that we need to look for, the more of this crap I find.
Welcome to the rabbit hole.
Yeah. It's probably the Dutch.
It's not. It's. Yeah. I just like saying. Obviously, look. Do you look?
Throwing that out.
Space Nazis.
Well, hang on. So I sent you guys that video of that. It is a great title. It's my favorite conspiracy theory. Is the idea that there's Nazis in space, like on the moon, like ruling over us. Right. I don't believe that. That's like a fun one for me to play around with. That's like,
it is an interesting.
Here's something that I told my son. Check this out, because the moon is closer to the Earth right now. It looks bigger. Mm-hmm. It's gotten bigger, right? Mm-hmm. And so I told my son, because the moon is so close, that makes it easier for the space Nazis to go back and forth.
Mm-hmm. It's a transit period.
He's like, no, they're communists. No, space Nazis. So we had a big old debate about that.
What I like is I was having a conversation the other day about the difference between Nazis and fascists. And I'm like, they're very similar, but they are definitely different, you know?
Words point to things, gentlemen.
Well, it's just like, well, there's no, you got Nazis and you got communists, and Nazis are fascists. No, fascists are fascists, Nazis are Nazis, and communists are communists. There are delineations between them. Nazism and communism are closer than the two. And and it's like explaining to people, and this is what I'm trying to get at. Words mean things. Nazi is National Socialist German Workers' Party. Socialism is in the name. It's that obvious. But anyways,
it's a good point. It's something that most people don't think about or understand or spend the time to think about it. They just here's where people's minds are at. Good guy, good thing, bad thing. That's all it is. And your good thing or bad thing is dependent on how you were raised or what your media intake is or what country you're in. But it's good thing, bad thing. It's Marvel comic book nonsense. And that's
it goes further back than that. If you think about this, so how did you know back in BCE that something was bad to eat? Someone
Billy
died.
over there died.
Yeah. Good thing, bad thing, right? How do we know that this meat is good? Or if it leaves out. So we have had this good thing, bad thing for centuries, eons, right?
Yeah. The question is why
DNA.
Though? It's like that's the next level of consciousness. Like it's one thing for the observed to see like, okay, if I do this, ouch, the stove burned me. I'm not going to do that again. Right. You know, bad thing. But the question is why? So, because then you can extrapolate out into the world the same pattern of good thing, bad thing into other things to understand it so you can avoid other problem sets or stacks down the road. We're not doing that like at all. Like it's really scary to me that people don't even think that way anymore.
We're at caveman style.
Yeah.
Nice. The caveman
They have more
mentality
common sense than we do. Like honestly,
probably did.
Like we're like the dodo birds in
and they're sitting there on like their haunches going, fire, fire. They touch it, burn.
Yeah, but then they go, why is this happen? They see the rocks and they see the stars and they're like, it's the gods. And you know what? They're pretty close to being right on that. So good for them. But we're like the dodo birds on the Galapagos Islands, like the men in the West, especially. I'm going to say the West because I'm more familiar with that. I don't know what's going on in Asia. Like it seems to be the same mind parasite. But you know, the dodo bird, when the Darwin got over to the Galapagos the first time, there's all these big fat chicken birds, and they were like, "Oh my God, that looks amazing!" And they were like full of meat. They had no natural predator, and they're just wandering around, and they just literally go up to them, hit them with a stick, put them in a bag, and you got like 3 chickens like per dodo bird. And that's why they went extinct. They had no natural predator, and they just wander around just eating things and not paying attention. And that's the Western man right now. We have a bunch of natural enemies, but our enemies have taught us to think that they're not our enemies. They're like, it's this estrogenic warfare of, it's like all these evil demons are wearing Mr. Rogers attire and speaking very softly and nicely to you and making you feel really good about hello,
now,
everybody.
Colin, you would look good in a sweater jacket.
I do.
I'm telling you.
I do.
Yeah,
I actually just got
very
one.
dapper. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, it's like it's these people are more evil. Like the amount of damage this man has caused is like you have to put him at the level of. Now, I don't give him this much credit because he's a facet of an apparatus that's way bigger than him. But if we're going to blame somebody and we're going to choose to blame him, he's at the level of Stalin and Hitler, just in terms of body count, objectively speaking.
Yeah.
But I'm not willing to give him that much credit because he's a freaking slave, as far as I'm concerned. He just goes on camera and says what he's told.
But here it is. And for Russia, they didn't learn from their mistake. In America, if we follow what Russia did and just sweep it under the rug, then anything goes. There is no morality.
Wait, hang on. You're saying the Russians have not learned from their Soviet ventures?
From when the I'm trying to remember the
Solzhenitsyn.
They'd be sent off to the Gulag and all that kind of stuff. The name of the book is
Live Not by Lies, Gulag
to...
Archipelago.
Archipelago, there we go.
Alexander Solzhenitsyn.
Yeah. And he flat out says if they would have just said we were wrong, they would have changed the whole culture. But because they didn't, they swept it under the rug. The morality is not as it could have been. So in the United States, if we follow down the same road, what Fauci did, if it continues down and hey, it's okay, we can just sweep it under the rug. Let's just be dodo birds walking around. What will we learn as a country? What would our history be? What would our future be?
What I was thinking about is it's like these beta male Antifa guys that are all real hardcore and they're out there threatening people, but when a real man steps up to punch them in the face, they flee and run. It's the thing that came into my head. It's just
I have a quote from him.
There'd be more of those.
I'm sure you know this quote. It's what you're talking about. And how we burned in the camps later thinking what things have been like if every security operative, when he went out at night to make an arrest, had been uncertain whether he would return alive and had to say goodbye to his family. Or if during periods of mass arrest, for example, in Leningrad, when they arrested a quarter of the entire city, people had not simply sat there in their lairs, appalling with terror at every bang of the downstairs door, at every step on the staircase, but had understood they had nothing left to lose and had boldly set up in the downstairs hall an ambush of half a dozen people with axes, hammers, pokers, or whatever else they could have at hand. The organs of the state would very quickly have suffered a shortage of officers in transport, and notwithstanding all of Stalin's thirst, the cursed machine would have ground to a halt if we didn't love freedom enough. And even more, we had no awareness of the real situation. We purely and simply deserved everything that happened afterwards. Alexander Solzhenitsyn. And that is literally what is happening to us. And the problem is the type of warfare they're engaging in is not, they don't have the organs of the state, the officers coming and knocking. Well, they are doing it to targeted people. I know people that were locked up over Jan 6. Like their couple live nearby. And I've had friends that had brother. Like it's like I know people that have been targeted. I know people that had their brake lines cut, that I've had people come to I've had people come to my house when I was just running for city council, like leaving like notes and stuff. And that's these Antifa people types. There's those lower level people that are just operating on their own, that aren't getting main directives. It's just pure ideology driving them and just propaganda.
Copycat.
Yeah. And it's but they don't fight. They don't want to fight out in the open. They don't need to. They are like, anyone that's ever been in a really, really, really bad relationship knows exactly who we're dealing with. And just men that had that female that knows exactly how to destroy your life and make it your fault, or in the eyes of everyone else, just this passive aggressive, and then be hyper aggressive when you can get away with it, and then retreat and be like, oh my God, don't hurt me. And then that's our enemy right now. And the male mind has no idea what to do with this. We haven't been trained how to deal with this. And because all we think of, that's like all these guys are like, well, if the blue helmets come, I'm going to stand up and fight. They're here. And you're probably married to one. Like, honestly.
And they're gaslighting us.
I only make her wear the helmet in certain kinky situations.
Right.
Okay.
And
just throwing that out there. I mean, blue's my favorite color. So
And then that provides a smoke screen for real bad actors like cartels and gangs to operate under the smoke screen of all this chaos, to run their operations, buy out politicians, run lawyers. Dude, I've encountered in Texas, the amount of Democrat lawyers that are tied to cartels, it's probably over 50 to 60%. It's crazy down here. We are a mob state, literally.
Well, I remember that. You ever watch Landman?
Yeah.
The TV
I've
show?
seen clips
Only
of
season 1, though. Only season 1. Haven't got past that.
Well, because there's only season 1 out. Smart ass.
Season 2 comes out in 2 weeks. I guess it is.
But that's stuff they were talking about with the cartels, like your trucks will just disappear and re-show back up. 100% true. We have the lawyer that's scene where they're talking with the sheriff. I've seen similar things to that. Not necessarily, that's a bit exaggerated, but they're talking about, why didn't you report this stolen? Well, it's going to return. Why would we report it stolen? They bring it back. It's just part of doing business out there. And the lawyers that you run into out in those oil fields, they're tied in with the cartels down in there. It's just need to know who to.
I know we're wishing for the days that we had to deal with the Italian mafia. Like those guys were nice.
Were civil. The cartels or the Mexican mafia, basically what it is they're way worse.
Yeah. And the Italian mafia ties into Operation Gladio, for what it's worth.
Yep. That was a good rabbit hole that I went down a couple Sundays ago.
I really like what you sent me. You're really wrapping your head around this. I like that. I hadn't thought about some of those things. I need to sit down and think about what you wrote for a minute.
What did you write?
Wrote some good stuff.
It's a little dense to get into right now, but it's, we're coming up on 2 hours, it looks like.
Yep.
Yeah, let me guess. That one?
Yeah. Comes out of that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great book.
I haven't heard of that one.
Everyone should own one.
Okay. Cool.
I would have bought this, but it was given to me.
Yeah, what? What?
All right. So what's the
this
gestalt of what we just discussed today? What did we all learn today, kids?
Well, it's been very eye-opening. This last few days of researching Anthony Fauci has just been impressive on how corrupt that son of a bitch was.
And he's just a drop
it's like everything
in the
he
bucket,
touches,
dude.
I know he's merely one of the ringleaders. He's not really. It's just God. He pisses me off.
He's a puppet. He's not even a ringleader. He's a front for all these other entities behind him. Like once you get back, in this book, it goes into the Rockefellers, the Bill Gates. We're dealing with the old oil barons and the old financialists that helped that History Channel series, The Men Who Built America. You want to know who our local enemies are? Watch that, and it's like, and the weird thing is, it's not that all the Rockefellers are bad people that want to see the country destroyed. There's factions within families. Like this is a real civil war, brother against brother. Like it's at that level.
Literally, the Kennedys this has split the Kennedy family.
That's a great. Exactly.
Hatfields and the McCoys.
Yep. Well, kind of, except the Hatfields are fighting the Hatfields, and some of the Hatfields are joining with the McCoys. It's really, and this is why people keep saying this is a spiritual fight.
Yeah.
Are you in a death cult and a death spiral, or do you believe in life and humanity?
I'm going to say this, and then we'll go ahead and shut this down. But the thing that pisses me off the most when I've talked to these kids, because I'm definitely involved with the autism, and they brought it up, and they go, "Well, he's not a man of science." And I keep saying, neither is Bill Gates. Yeah, but Bill Gates isn't a man of science, but everyone listens to him, and he's done all that Bill Gates documentary that just bloviated how great he was. On Netflix, did you see that crap?
No.
What's going on in Bill Gates' mind?
Oh yeah, I've seen clips of it. I should watch it though, just to see what.
And he was talking about how he had this computer program he figured out to track outbreaks of whatever virus he was going after that day, and he could just never get it under containment.
He's such a liar. he hoarded himself out more than the other people around him and was more vicious, and his family were crazed, evil technocrats.
His mother's horrible.
Like, yeah.
His mother was horrible and the thing that frustrates me is, just to give you some reference, one of the very first books I ever read cover to cover was the book that Bill Gates put out about the future of the internet and all that stuff back in the 90s when he wrote that book. So I was a fanboy of, I was a fanboy of Bill Gates. I thought he was pretty cool.
A lot of people did.
Yeah, he invented the internet in his garage.
No, that was Al Gore.
Oh, right.
Yeah. No. I remember that I would never even touch an Apple product. They were the enemy. And now I'm sitting in front of a whole 2 monitors and everything I have is Apple now. Yeah.
So what I learned about this is because I'm going through the Bible, and Ezra, Nehemiah, and these are when the Hebrews got taken into captivity and all that kind of stuff. And in Ezra, it's talking about, man, look behind this wall, look behind here, look over here. And it's them worshiping. It's them doing things that are 180 from what God has asked them to do, right? And it's all behind different places in the temple. And it's in these different places and stuff like that. It's hidden from the public. And I'm like, what was happening has some parallelism. This isn't the first time this has happened, and probably not going to be the last time, because they keep talking about the next pandemic. And I'm like, this is old as the Hebrews. This is old as time. And yet we're not learning from our lessons. We're not learning from history. We're not taking in account of why are people doing this, and what's the control, and how do I stop being a sheep, be more a sheepdog?
Yep. Amen.
Yeah.
Be under shepherd.
Yep. And now they're rolling out the UFO option.
Well,
I don't want to go down that road yet. That's a teaser for maybe next time.
This is just an observation. My favorite author, one of my favorite authors of all time is Michael Crichton. And he wrote a book called State of Fear. And the premise is that, he researched all the environmental stuff when he was alive. And he wrote this book debunking all of it. He put his debunk of environmentalism into like a novel and a story about it. But this takeaway that the authors note at the end was, as long as there is fear of something, you can control a population. And the United States has always had their population afraid of, first it was the British, and then it was the British.
And then it was the British and the British.
Then it was the Mexicans.
Native
and then
Americans.
It was the Native Americans. We went to the Mexican-American War. Then it was brother versus brother. They're always fighting someone
North
to be
versus
afraid
South.
of. Now it's Venezuela. And the thing that I find really interesting, and we'll hit this, is how many people got mad at me over that last thing, because they say I'm not pro-Trump because I'm not pro, him starting up a damn war in South America. But anyways, that's a topic for the next podcast. We've gone way too long.
Yeah. No.
All right, gentlemen, we're going to call it at that. I wanted to say thank you for y'all. If you got this far, we really appreciate it. Look for our podcast on all the platforms, the major ones. We're on Spotify. We're on
YouTube,
Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Rumble. I started figuring out how to get on Rumble. And look, I set up an account for X, so I'm trying to figure this all out. And I'm only one man who's old and trying to learn new tricks. So anyways, thanks for going down the rabbit hole with us. And next time there'll be a turning to a different direction. All right.